You're listening to the podcast About Nothing, available on Spreaker, Stitcher, and thegreatentertainmentnetwork.com. Welcome to the podcast About Nothing, and we have a returning special guest, Mr. Paul O'Brien, the author of Blood Red Turns Dollar Green, amongst other things, but that's probably his most famous at the moment. Paul, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me back.
Oh, man, it would have been a lot sooner. Just the damn time scheduling is always a pain.
Yeah, it is from Ireland to... You're on the East Coast, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm in Brooklyn, New York.
Yeah, Brooklyn, yeah.
Currently freezing to death. I think it's like a bomb 20 degrees, I think, today.
That's a balmy summer's day in Ireland.
Oh, is it? Okay, so you guys have no mercy for us. So
I could get a tan from that type of temperature.
Oh, wow. Oh, not me. I don't tan at all. I burn and then I just turn white again.
Yeah, same here. Yeah.
Well, last time Paul was here, we were talking about his book, obviously, which I love, and I finally got to read the third one. That's what I was waiting on. I think it was launching, I don't know, late October at the time. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, October 25th, I think.
Ah, okay. Now it's the same day that you were getting honored, or a guest of honor at a festival back home, right?
That's it. Yes, it's all making sense now. Yes, screenwriter Paul Gay flew in from Los Angeles. He was the guy who wrote Liar Liar and Heartbreakers, Little Rascals, and yeah, he flew from Los Angeles to Ireland, which is a 13-hour flight, to launch my novel in my hometown. Just because he was a fan of the books. It was amazing. It really was amazing.
Oh, that's awesome. So what was the turnout like for that festival?
Yeah, it was hundreds and hundreds. It was there's some pictures on my website, paulobrien.info, and it's what they call a Spiegel tent. So if you can imagine, it's like a big huge circus tent, and it was standing room only, as they would say in wrestling. We sold it out, brother.
SRO. Well,
yes.
Listen, if you're the WWE, then hundreds of thousands were there. Depends on it.
Yes, exactly.
The Silver Dome was sold out for your... Yes. Well, speaking of wrestling, obviously your hot topic at the time is the book we were still covering last time, Blood Red Turns Dollar Green. How have the sales been? I know you're doing a lot of digital.
Yes, it's been great. So a lot has happened since we last spoke. I've signed with a literary agent, so the books now look like they're going to go legit, because maybe some of your listeners might know, and some might not, that I published these myself. I had offers at the start, which I turned down because they wanted me to keep the crime aspect of these novels. So these novels are kind of like your Godfather with suplexes, as Mick Foley calls them. They're crime novels akin to Sopranos, Boardwalk Empire, that type of thing, but set in the territorial days. And so the first few literary agents that came along wanted me to keep the crime but get rid of the wrestling. And that would have made me, of course, the same as 10 million other crime writers out there. So I'm the guy who wrote the first wrestling crime novels, and I've since signed now with a literary agent who gets it, and we've put it out there now to all the major publishing houses, and I'm glad to say that there's been a huge response, and I should have an update for everybody within the next couple of weeks.
Oh, great. I'll make sure I help you spread the word to...
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we have a little bit of a larger audience since the last time we spoke. Now we're on iTunes, officially. We still are under, I think it's Harry Barnett. A little shout out to Harry. He has the Great Entertainment Network, the most humbly named website of all time. And we were on iTunes through them, but now we're on through them and our own, and Spreaker and Stitcher and a few other ones. But iTunes never gives you your feedback, so you have no idea how many people are actually listening.
Ah, I see.
I don't know why they do it that way. I thought it was just me, but everybody tells me that.
Right. That's a strange
practice. But, it grows little by little.
Yes, absolutely. I'm sure, there'll be a couple of million listening tonight.
Absolutely, yeah.
You put out in advance that we were going to be talking to me, so...
That's right.
I'm sure that's going to put you ahead of JR and Steve Austin and so on.
Ah, yeah, those guys. They can't lace my boots up, as they say in the wrestling business. I think they would wipe they wouldn't eat, if they had my numbers and they woke up, it's an old Oprah Winfrey joke, but if they had my numbers and woke up, they would slit their throats probably compared to what they have now. What happened? kill myself. But all right, so we're saying, so is there a chance of this book becoming like a media property, like a movie or a TV show?
Well, yes, I've sold the rights for the TV show, and there's some kind of huge developments on that as well. It's really strange, you know. Last Friday evening, I had on my desk here in Ireland a contract for to sign with a literary agent and a contract to sign the second year in the TV development with a TV development company. So it was quite amazing. They both went off on the same Monday morning across the Atlantic Ocean. So I'm really thrilled with that. You know, these books have far outshone what I thought was going to happen.
Oh, I mean, it's due, I guess, because they are great books. We're not just saying that, or I'm not just saying that, but you got the support of actual wrestlers who, you know, it's really hard to find things based on wrestling that don't make fun of them or make light of them and stuff like that. And these books definitely do not. I mean, if you guys go back and listen to our first interview, I read the first one in about 9 hours, I think, total.
That's right.
And then the second, and then I had to wait for the third, which killed me, but it was worth it. It was like a surprise on my tablet. It just uploaded one day because I forgot the date.
Right, it just
made my day. So I tried to stretch that one out a little longer, try not to read it all at once, but it didn't work. So.
Yeah, you had to gorge that as well.
Yeah,
well, I hope it all panned out for you.
Oh,
I know as you know, a trilogy that people now have tried to. I've even got some email feedback that you know, again, some of your listeners might know these are not necessarily written in chronological order. Sometimes I jump around, use time as a device, and you know, there was a couple of readers who have now tasked themselves with stripping it all out and putting it in chronological order. So you know, I await that.
I did
so
that.
They're gonna,
Similar
they're
to
gonna
Pulp
put that in
Fiction.
the document.
Oh yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Some people just go on their DVD and watch it in order. They can't watch it the way it is. But
I think that's hilarious. You know, I think it's really great. Number one, that someone cares enough to kind of unravel it that way, and then I suppose mine is a little different, and I suppose a little bit trickier than Pulp Fiction, in that not only is mine not in chronological order, but mine also is kind of deceptive in the angle that it uses. You know, as in like if I can use a camera angle. And that in the first novel, I've written out a scene that has quite a tight angle on it, and you think, okay, I saw, you know, let's say someone been murdered, so I saw him murder this guy, and then you find out in the second book that it was somebody else a couple of seconds earlier who had whispered in that guy's ear who actually put the hit out on him, and then in the third book it widens out again, so you see there was a whole meeting, you know, and the word came down from somebody else to give the word to somebody else to kill this guy, and so ultimately who was responsible for it, you only find out kind of in the third novel, even though you might see the event in the first novel.
yeah, I mean that's my favorite type of thing. So it's like an onion. You just keep peeling away until you see the whole thing. Well, I guess you don't see the whole onion, but you pull back on the angle, like you said, and you see a little picture, and it gets bigger and bigger. And what seems like a random event in one book turns out it's a planned event by the time the third one comes around.
Absolutely. My office at that time was like a scene out of It's a Beautiful Mind, the Russell Crowe movie. There was not. My walls were covered in notes and post-its and lines from one novel to the other, because before I even wrote the first novel, I knew the end of the third novel. But I just had to then figure out, okay, well, how am I going to get there now in the most entertaining, readable way possible that pushes story that, you know, like these novels. I think my last count, I had over 85 characters across 6 or 7 different territories, spanning from late 60s to early 80s. You know, so they were quite epic in their scale. So trying to get from, say, 1969 to 1982 was quite the journey.
Yeah, well, it was fun to be on. I mean, as a reader.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, I mean, I recommend it to everybody who even shows any kind of reading, you know, interest. Especially, you know, but I was trying to, I don't know if you've been in touch with Lance Storm. I know he's a huge bookworm.
He was the only wrestler who hated him.
Really? Oh, wow. That's a surprise.
Yeah, I was surprised. Well, you know, I don't want to sound vain. I wasn't surprised because I wrote it. I was surprised because he likes crime. Because I know he's a big Lee Childs fan, and he likes obviously wrestling. And but you know, I got the sense with Lance Storm that he didn't like anybody who was writing about this who wasn't inside the business, you know.
Okay.
So like he kind of read it begrudgingly. He read it maybe, year and a half in when everyone was badgering him to read it. And at that stage, like, it had got some pretty great endorsements, like JR was on board, Mick Foley and Bret Hart, and who else was Regal was on board at that stage, and Heyman, and no, but Lance Storm just nope. And he actually didn't reply to me, and I knew there was something wrong because a couple of months later, I hadn't heard anything, so I sent a nice polite email to Lance, and I just said, listen, any feedback, I'd appreciate if you had any words at all, and he wrote me a nice, in fairness to Lance, he wrote me a nice email telling me why he didn't like it. I agreed with some of his points, I didn't agree with others, and we kind of left it at that. So I mean, even in his dislike of it, I found him to be an absolute gentleman, and I hope that he found me respectful as well. But it was, it was great to have that conversation with somebody like Lance who had spent that long in the business, because my feedback up to then had been 100% positive, and I got to spend quite a lot of time, with Mick Foley, for instance. I got to meet Mick Foley in Belfast in Northern Ireland. I got to meet him in Scotland, and where else? I got to meet him in County Cork and here in Ireland. And so over those kind of 3 meetings, I spent a lot of time talking these novels with Mick, and how supportive he was of them, and what he'd like to see in the next ones, and what made sense, and where he would see these going. And then of course he gave me the most huge compliment, which was that he was thinking of writing a wrestling crime novel himself, or a wrestling fiction novel, but he said that I had set the bar so high that he's not going to even attempt it. So, and Mick is amazing, because he recorded this on video. He said this quote on video, and he gave it to me, put that on use that as, put it on your website. So not only did he mean it, not only did he say it, he kind of gave me the evidence, if you like, the endorsement, to go and use it.
I mean, I'm sure he had a hill to climb when he wrote his first book, just being respected as a writer at all. Yeah. So you get genuine appreciation from him.
I can imagine, yeah. And of course, we all know what a great writer he is as well. So not only did it matter from his obviously his wrestling career, and how much I respected that, but just he as a writer, he's just a phenomenal writer. Simple as that.
He tells a great story. He's got that humor to him.
Yeah, as well.
But so outside of the wrestling business, who's been your, I guess, most surprising endorser?
Well, that one from Paul Gay was quite surprising. I was just sitting here in my office one night, and I got an email from Paul Gay saying that he loved these novels, and I thought, whoa, where did he even hear of this? And and then there's Kenny versus Spenny on on Comedy Channel. Both of those guys have gotten in contact as well and said how much they loved it. So. There's been people that, and then a lot of other writers, just in my business, if you like, have gotten in contact and said, how much they love the kind of technique, the writing quality and style we say, like Owen Colfer, who wrote the Artemis Fowl series, and he wrote the Douglas Adams novels as well. Douglas Adams' estate asked him to write. What were they called? And Another Thing, after he died. So, he's a guy who's out there selling 40 million books.
Oh, wow.
For him to get in contact and say, these are, and he endorsed me, he endorsed me as a crime writer, and, I had known him as a playwright. I do know him. He's from my hometown as well. So, so for people like that to kind of come out, there's another, Sundance winners as well, filmmakers, the Barnes brothers from New York. They had won the Sundance Best Newcomers, and they come out as well, and they endorsed the book. The newsreader from the Howard Stern show, John Lieberman, he came out, put me on Howard Radio on Sirius XM. Keith Elliott Goldberg from MBC News, as that pronounced. It's just fantastic. All these, so just in that little batch that I can remember off the top of my head, that's kind of like wrestlers, writers, news guys, guys who work for Howard Stern. Who else was in that batch? New York Times bestsellers. It's been quite the adventure.
Well, that's the. I mean, maybe it's not unique, but that's what I like about the book or writing industry, is that they're not afraid to support each other. Like on each, in the back of a book, you'll see all the different endorsement quotes and stuff, where in other professions, maybe even wrestling business, they're not so quick to endorse each other. It's like you're
Well,
taking.
I suppose I was just another name drop, but I was just talking to JR about this, then a couple of days ago, and I was saying, I don't know of any time that the wrestling business has come out like this. It's because the wrestling business itself, of course, is so closed, and it has been until very, very recently, the last 5-10 years. But not only that, that they just don't tend to come out to endorse things that they're not, contracted to endorse, or it's not part of their company, the company that they're wrestling for. These are totally independent novels. Just some guy in Ireland wrote them, and to have all these guys come out individually as well. So, they didn't like sit down for dinner one night and said, okay, we'll say something, as a group on this. It wasn't like a joint statement or anything. These were guys like that, come out in their own good time. They picked the novels up, they read them in their own homes all across the Americas. And when they were good and ready, they come out and said, yeah, we love these books. And I've talked to people in the wrestling business. Nobody else has ever heard of them. That many big names come out that forcefully for something that they weren't contracted to come out and say it was brilliant or good or whatever.
Yeah, I think I first heard about it through Devitt, Baylor now.
Right.
So, that was the first time I saw it, and that's what made me go. But I wanted to wait at least until the second one was around, because I knew I have no patience.
Yeah, a lot of people like that, and even that, like that's for me, that's a brilliant story. Like first and foremost, I'm a wrestling fan, and just before Christmas this year, I got was it an email or a text? Anyway, I got a message off Sheamus just out of the blue, saying, would you like to come up to Dublin for lunch, And I was like, oh yeah, on the train, I drove up to Dublin. Met Sheamus, just he and I in this little small Irish bar. We had never met each other before, and honestly, he just sat down, and my phone rang, and it was Finn Balor. Finn Balor, and that was the first time he ever called me. But it was just such timing. Like I said to Sheamus, there's Fergal, and Sheamus said, let me talk to him. And he was talking to Finn Balor in this pub, and I was sitting there thinking, this is just crazy that I'm sitting in front of Sheamus, who's talking to Finn Balor on my phone in Dublin, just the two of us in this little pub. So we had a great conversation. We were there for a couple of hours, and honestly, you couldn't meet a more sound person than Sheamus. Just generous, happy to be where he is, quick-witted, funny guy. And then Finn Balor said, would you like to kind of drop into me on the way home, because he lives an hour away from Dublin south. He lives halfway between my house and Sheamus, let's say. So I said I'd love to. So I jumped in my car, drive down to where Finn Balor lives. He was waiting there for me. Then he and I kind of went to this coffee shop. We spent hours talking wrestling and all sorts of stuff. And it was just one of those days where I thought, for me as a wrestling fan, I thought this would never, ever happen. You never think, you think that you might bump into a wrestler outside a show or something. They might sign something for you, or, but for them, like, to kind of, say, why don't you drop it to me on the way home, or, it was just, and I was in nerd heaven when I got home. And then when I got home, Becky Lynch had heard about it, and she left a message for me, and she's just amazing as well. But apart from all that, I suppose that's the kind of three Irish people, individually and separately, such talent between those three people. I think if they let Sheamus off the lead and let him be who I met, which was a quick-witted, funny, but someone you just wouldn't mess with, and let him be that rather than the fella character.
Right.
And of course, we all know where Finn Balor is going, and then Becky Lynch has proven. I've been familiar with her work for just over a year or more, but certainly in the last, especially on the last special, but the last, we say, 7 or 8 NXT shows and the last special, she is going to be, and the world is seeing how good she is as well. So I just think, for a small little country like Ireland, we have, 3 kind of pretty great wrestlers out there at the moment.
Yeah, right now, I mean, they've always been, but it's generating a lot of talent these days, at least for
Yeah.
public consumption. Because Sheamus is, you've seen the hype videos. It doesn't look like they're changing him too much. The only thing I noticed was in all those videos, he's beating up a bunch of baby faces in all of his clips.
Yeah.
I know, that's why just
I think
coincidence.
that might tell you something.
Hey, hopefully, because I like him as a
Yeah,
heel, as a,
Well, that's
sarcastic,
it,
bully type of guy.
Yeah, and I think sometimes the internet can be a little bit cynical. They can forget really quick. Like, but when he burst onto the scene as a heel, whoa, he made a huge impact. Like I think for me anyway, for my money, I prefer him as a heel. I think he gravitates to that easier. I think, his size and just his demeanor and all that sort of stuff. I think even the way he wrestles, just a brute. Kind of bullier way forward type style, the hard style, the strong style. I think that all suits, for me, a bad guy more than a hero.
I think so too. I just think maybe Vince McMahon saw him and was like, here's my Hulk Hogan larger than life, character, to maybe replace John Cena one day, but it just didn't plan out that way. Now you're
That's it, Well, Vince has a kind of track record of that, hasn't he? I mean, like, we all remember the time when John Cena was trying to be The Rock, and then we remember the time where, Sheamus was programmed to be John Cena, and it's amazing, like, the way the baton over is like you're handed over, it has to be almost to the same character, when they expected us not to realize that Diesel and Razor Ramon were played by two completely different characters,
Yeah.
or two wrestlers. It's kind of, sometimes it's like that with WWE. We're supposed to not notice.
I don't know how much of it. I mean, I guess it all falls to Vince in the end. I don't know the guy, but he has a formula that worked at once, or maybe two or three times, and he's not going to deviate from it. So you're gonna have to settle for NXT, which I think Triple H is saying he wants to take on the road.
That's it, I just I wonder about that. I suppose, to go to Vince first, I think Vince for me is a classic counter-puncher, you know what I mean? He's a classic underdog, we all know his story. He didn't start off as a rich guy. I think he works better when there's a threat around. I think he works better, his brand is, I don't know, just more attuned or something like that when there's a threat. When there's a WCW breathing down his neck, when there's when he was trying to burn his way through the territories, I think he works better that way. Even we say in kind of the Hulk Hogan era, even when he was kind of just clashing with, kind of Dusty and those guys over kind of pay-per-view, giving it away free and, kind of programming against each other and all that sort of stuff. I think Vince loves a good dogfight.
I agree.
And, who's he fighting at the moment?
His closest thing, even though he won't admit it, is the UFC, I guess.
And he won't admit it, you're right. So it's kind of, I just wonder. I wonder with Vince, the kind of genius moniker and all, I think, kind of suits him more when his back is against the wall and he has to counter punch.
Well, maybe he's accidentally created his own competition with NXT and Raw, because they're clearly not being run by the same people when you look at the formats.
That's it, and you just wonder as well, in the same way he wouldn't let WCW live under those terms. I'd be worried for NXT as well, in that, getting it up on the road and moving it and all that sort of stuff, like, it sounds pretty good on paper, but at the same time, if I was someone like an Adrian Neville or a Sami Zayn or, even a Finn Balor coming, the temptation for the bookers of NXT, Triple H, and there's one other booker there, I'm forgetting his name, is going to be to keep these guys shortly.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have to up the, well, they don't have to, but you would hope they'll get more money for being. I just worried that that Full Sail University has got kind of like its own atmosphere, like the old ECW arena and stuff, and it's probably much the same crowd in there all the time. And you take that show and you put it somewhere else, I don't know if they get the same reactions.
And I think that might be a good thing, I think that might be one of the reasons to take it on the road. I was at Full Sail myself, and I got to see NXT actually just outside Florida. I drove a couple of hours outside Florida in a little 50-seat armory. And, those guys weren't there. Those guys, they show up to TV, and they want to be seen kind of front row, the first maybe 10 rows or whatever. But I went to an NXT house show. It was a tiny little place. I can't remember the name now, but it was a couple of hours outside of Orlando. And, there was maybe 50 seats laid out, but there was only about 15 or 20 of us there. Now, I had an absolute ball. I got to sit up really close to the ring. I got to see him work. All these like young, hungry. At that time, Bo Dallas was the champion, and Leo Kruger was there instead of Adam Rose, is it, or Alan, whatever it is?
Yeah, Adam Rose.
Yeah, Adam Rose, and so for me, I was in nerd heaven. But it was curious to me that these guys didn't travel for that. It was like they like being heard on TV, and they like being seen as fans of the TV product, but not necessarily of NXT.
Well, yeah, I could see that. You could just see them online, and they're like retweeting their pictures of themselves in the crowd, and their signs and stuff. I guess like the old Attitude Era days when everybody had a sign. Thank God Twitter wasn't around back then. That would have been, oh my God.
Would have been unbearable.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I wouldn't have been able to take it. But I'm the same way when I get to go to a smaller show, like I go to Chikara shows or a Ring of Honor when they have in New York. There's no bad seats. You can just, they're right on top of you.
Yep, it's amazing.
But like we were saying, when we were talking last, he was just, Finn Balor was just announcing his new name, and we were wondering, obviously it worked out fine for him. He's doing the body makeup that he was doing in New Japan and in the UK, but he doesn't do it every match. I guess it makes it seem more special.
Exactly.
And it's merchandise heavy.
Yes. And I think that's the Balor side of the Finn Balor character, because what I learned online actually is that they're not doing a great job in explaining that on NXT. That the Balor actually stands for a kind of a mystical old Irish demon. Depending on what story you're reading, Balor actually stands for, in one instance he is essentially the devil. He's the lord of the underworld. And then in other stories, then he's just a giant destroyer. So he's the guy that they release at the end of every war to kind of clear everybody out, to kill. He's a one-eyed kind of, demon that comes up from the dark. And I definitely think that's what, Finn Balor is doing with his character. Once a month, I think he's becoming the Balor. But I think the guys on commentary are not doing him any favors by getting that across,
No, I don't think they've even mentioned it ever. This is the first time I don't get it every single week. I've been doing it more since Owens debuted. But it comes on at the same time as Lucha Underground, so it's like I always have to debate which one I'm going to watch live and which one I'm going to watch. And but I had no idea, so that just goes to show you. And I haven't heard that. That definitely explains, the look and paint, because before that people just liked the paint because he was doing like Marvel characters or stuff like that, and just thought it looked cool. But this one actually has a story behind it. Maybe they'll give him a chance to do a promo and explain it.
Maybe. You see, again, this is just me. I haven't spoken to Finn Balor about this, but this is just my take on it. That he's kind of, the Finn character, on NXT, and then when it comes to the specials or the pay-per-views, then he turns into the Balor character. Kind of unsettlingly for me, I heard the commentators talking about Dark Passengers and Dexter type.
Oh God, really?
Yeah, at the last special they were saying that Finn Balor carries a Dark Passenger. Now this might be it might be the birth of the Balor character, but it's just obviously that whole thing came from Dexter, so it's a bit.
It's a good tool to use as a heel run later on if he does the makeup full time,
Yeah, very good. Yeah, absolutely.
Like a Venom thing, just slowly take over him. Then you have to do a lot less talking too when you're like that. Just growl at somebody and stomp the shit out of them. I think his finisher is I think they're calling it the coup de grace, but I don't know if that's the actual name of the move, the double stomp that he's using. Yeah,
it doesn't have a name yet. I hope they don't stick on the coup de grace. I hope they go up for something like Hell from Above or something like that.
Yeah, I know, Death from Above, something. Because he has the Bloody Sunday, which they haven't called either, the reverse.
They haven't called that yet.
No, I think they're afraid to. Maybe.
Yeah, it might be to do with the whole political ramifications of that.
Yeah, I think so. But so we had Mr. Balor, we had Kevin Owens, as we mentioned. Him and Sami Zayn had their first match, and I didn't realize how many people just flat out don't know their in-ring history, or the ones that did were complaining about the finish. And I said, if you know about them, you know that, like in Ring of Honor, they did a storyline that lasted a whole entire year. So they must have a case where if we ever made it to the WWE, we want to tell this story. I don't know how much control they had, but that finish is, you and I know, it's just to set up something longer.
Oh, a long story here. Yeah. And when they did it, I heard a symphony, like it was just, it was just magic to somebody, like you and I, somebody who, look, we know there's another, like if they wanted to, there's another, 15 matches in these guys.
Mm-hmm.
This is just simply the first turn in the first act. And if fans out there just give this time, like, again, we know what these two can deliver. I just thought it was masterful. I thought, Kevin Owens, was given the freedom or had the balls, one or the other, to be just a heel.
Yeah.
He slid out of the ring.
Yeah,
He walked around. He waited for his spot. And then, of course, when he had the kind of cheap way out, he took it. He just kept, powerbombing. Just trying to build, rather than, and Finn Balor and Adrian Neville, as we know, the match before that, they had a superb match, a babyface versus babyface match, where the match itself, all the effort went into laying out the match. Where I felt in the Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn match, all the effort went into laying out the characters.
Right.
To introducing the characters to this NXT audience, to this global audience on the WWE network. And I thought they just done a phenomenal job.
Yeah, Zayn plays that underdog so well. Even when he was, Generico, or maybe he's not him when you ask him, but he plays that underdog, and he's even I don't know the word, but in the past, like again, I think it was against Tyler Breeze, where he had the concussion and couldn't continue. So it's not a new thing for him to have the crap kicked out of him to the point where he gets knocked out. It's not a new development for the fans, but it makes Owens look like a monster, and still one that cheats and backs away, which you don't really see.
Yes.
Because Vince McMahon, supposedly like on the main roster, doesn't like a chicken shit heel, as they call them. Beg off. And I mean, but how are you going to boo a guy that's cooler than the good guy?
Well, this is it. It's kind of like it's the birth of the tweener. It was almost like the death of real heat in a stadium. With Kevin Owens, like even I, who know him and all that sort of stuff, I'm aware of all the stuff he's done. Like I felt genuine. I felt like he was a genuine, asshole.
Yeah, he does it well.
He's so fantastically brilliant at it that I can't, like, and I know it happens, but I can't imagine Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn hugging each other behind the curtain after that match.
Oh, I know.
Whereas all the other matches, you can just you can imagine the guys waiting for each other, shaking hands, and thank you, whatever. But with Kevin Owens, he's so good at being the monster, the heel, the bad guy, whatever you want to call it. That I just can't imagine backstage he changes, then he flips into just a normal guy, which of course he does.
Yeah, because I'll listen to him on old PWG commentary. And he is the nicest guy in the world, and like learned English by watching Monday Night Raw and stuff like that. And
right.
But it's almost with him and Zayn, I guess they've been together so long that it's like when you have a brother, like me and my older brother, when we used to play wrestling like in the street with our friends, you beat the shit out of your own brother more than you will, because you know that they're not going to be mad at you afterwards. So these two, like even the little things, like I think it was when he first attacked Zayn a couple of weeks prior. Not after he won the belt, but when he came out after the Neville match, the rematch, and when he kicked the belt into his head, people online were like, wow, he kicked that belt to his head really hard.
Oh, yeah.
I said, yeah, that's nothing. Wait until you see what he does. Wait till they have a no DQ match or something like, they'll probably have to scale it back, if anything.
Yeah.
Because
well, that's it. You're right. It was like, Cactus Jack and Terry Funk,
Yeah, they kicked the shit out of each other.
Just murdered each other because, they were best friends.
Yeah, you hurt your friends more, I guess, because they'll forgive you. But I can't wait to see it. I mean, and then people are going the extreme where they're saying there should be NXT title matches at WrestleMania and stuff like that. But, I mean, I'd love for the guys to do it just to get paid. But other than that, it just takes away that atmosphere,
It does. And again, it takes away that coolness. I mean, ECW couldn't have been ECW. Well, we found out later anyway, but ECW at its peak couldn't have been ECW in, one of the big stadiums under, like a Backlash pay-per-view. Mm-hmm. It just couldn't and wouldn't have worked. It just would have felt like they sold out. It would have felt like, that they took the money. It would have, and I think NXT is the same thing, even though, of course, it's the same company and, But it just feels like this, at the moment, it feels like this little outlaw company that's running, like the pilot fish who swims under the big great white shark. The great white shark doesn't even know the pilot fish is there, but it's feeding off it.
Yeah.
Again, I'm like you. I would love, of course, the guys, to make their money and all that. But It's kind of like, well, there's two universes there, and sometimes it's not good to have all your superheroes in the one universe. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's good to just keep separate.
Plus, it's the one show that you have to get the network, unless the people always point out to me, you get it on Hulu, who cares? But that's
Yeah.
only on the network. That's their exclusive, and it becomes bigger, then better for them.
Well, I can see them, absolutely building the network around NXT when they take bread after kind of WrestleMania and they figure out the subscriber numbers and that sort of thing. I can just see, in the same way that kind of MTV back in the day built, transition from the music videos to the reality TV around a couple of just reality shows, the same way E does it around a couple of, reality shows. I can see the WWE Network, being built around the NXT brand, still offering all that it offers, but just pulling NXT way more to the fore, having way more NXT content. Even there's rumors and talks that they're going to film Tough Enough down in the NXT Performance Center.
Oh,
Stuff like that, I think, is going to really kind of drag that brand to the front of the network.
yeah, I think that would help, just to help that performance center pay for itself, because they put a ton of money into that thing.
Oh yeah, you can only imagine. And of course, what else? What else do they have that, like you said, you can only get on the network? As great as all the pay-per-views are, you can download them, you can still buy them, you can get them in other ways. There's nothing really kind of new and exclusive on there. Divas is a rerun even. Obviously, they're not running first run Raws and SmackDowns. The pay-per-views, of course, are going to be huge for the network, but also as well, I think NXT is the other thing that they can, continually build on that you can only get on the network.
Yeah, between the weekly and then the takeover, pay-per-views or whatever you want to call them, specials.
Specials, yeah, could be amazing.
Because, well, speaking of the Great White Shark, what did you think about this year's Royal Rumble?
I loved the first half of it, and then I actually thought they were trolling the fans. I was sitting there. And I was thinking, not only are they thrown out, all the fan favorites like Ziggler and Daniel Bryan and so on, but there's the way they're like big. Like I turned around to my partner who used to love wrestling during the Attitude Era, and now she's kind of tuned out. She's still, she'll watch the Royal Rumble, as does my daughter who's 13. But like I was saying, in 2015, look, two of the last four are Big Show and Ken in 2015. Mm-hmm. And it was the way they were throwing the guys out. They were just picking them up and dropping them over the top like they were pieces of shit.
Yeah, especially.
And I thought, oh my God, they're trying to start a riot.
In Philadelphia, of all places,
Exactly, yeah. I mean, throw them out or whatever, okay, eliminate them, fine. But, Dolph Ziggler should have been eliminated after, like, the most valiant of valiant, 19... kind of, near falls, trips the audience behind him, their heart exploding. Dolph Ziggler looks like he's going to get it, and then, he should miss it by a whisker.
Yeah.
Rather than just being scooped up like a nobody, walked over. Everybody knew, like, there's no way as Big Show can win in this, so why are they getting...
And then they had Rusev playing the babyface outside the ring for the last second comeback.
Which was bizarre.
That didn't make any sense
bizarre.
either. Yeah, it was... And they didn't set up anything like the old Rumbles used to, where somebody would eliminate someone by accident, maybe set up a feud or stuff. When I was a little kid, that's what I used to watch for, to see, what feuds were going to get set up and, lead up to WrestleMania. But there was nothing.
And the other thing as well was, as I was looking around the ring, I was looking for that, we said like a Shawn Michaels or even a Rick Martel or something like that. I'm talking about old school Shawn Michaels, like Rockers Shawn Michaels, or just after. Like Shawn Michaels... Back then, no way he was winning the Royal Rumble. He was either part of the Rockers or just had left the Rockers. He would have been mid-card at best. And he worked like a horse in there, like kicking, punching, holding on, scrapping, holding the bottom rope, running around, moving, ducking, dodging. And the performance that he put in, like he used to burn up more energy in those Royal Rumble matches than he did in 10 of his matches. And that's saying something for Shawn Michaels. But in this year's Royal Rumble, they kind of all just went to the corner and took out their hammocks. They got out their little... they got out their little blankies and they all took a little nap in the corner.
Yeah, that's what Stone Cold said. He said Roman Reigns took a nap in the corner. Did he? Yeah, on his podcast. So
Steve Austin, fair play to him.
Yeah.
But it felt like where was the action? Where was the mid card action? Where was the
They didn't have that, like you said, workhorse. There's almost one every year that in the back of your mind doesn't have a chance. They'll go from like number 3 all the way until number 30's in there before they finally get eliminated to create heat for that number 30 guy or something.
Absolutely.
And I don't know, there was nothing. Those guys were all at the end. Ziggler was number 30. Ambrose was like 20 something. Kofi didn't. Well, Kofi did have his yearly, stave off inevitable elimination spot.
Yeah.
And I don't know, Daniel Bryan, I mean, we all know what happened to him, and he didn't even get eliminated in a, creative way. He was on the apron and just got knocked off.
It's like they're trying to create problems for themselves, though, with Daniel Bryan. It's like, okay, if that's what you had planned for him in the Rumble, then leave him out of the Rumble.
Don't bring him back.
Put him a big surprise in the last pay-per-view before WrestleMania. Let everyone go, oh, now I have to see this. It's his comeback.
Mm-hmm.
But to put him in there and just to dump him out like that, and everyone went, huh? It wasn't even anger for a second, and then it turned anger. But like when he first went out, everyone went, "Is that it?
Yeah.
Is that the best?"
Kept waiting for something to happen or something like that, or let him sneak back in. I don't know, or let him attack Wyatt, set up something. But nothing happened. I mean, he must have even been wondering when they told him. But he's such an amenable guy that, you wonder if he even gets pissed off by this stuff.
You wonder though, does that play to his advantage or not? I listened to was it Chris Jericho and Shawn Michaels, and they both agree, like, to get to the top of the tree and to stay there for a while, you have to be a little bit of an asshole.
Yeah.
You have to tell creative or Vince or whoever it is that no, I'm not doing that, and you must push it up. They were saying until it's fireable, and if you think you're going to get fired, then back down. But there was stuff handed to both of those guys. They said that they just said, no, I am not doing that. That just makes no sense whatsoever. And they could get blamed, of course, for, marking out for themselves and all that type of thing.
Uh-oh. Shawn Michaels and Jericho were saying how you pretty much got to be a prick to not get walked all over.
That's it. Just from time to time, look after the belt. I think that helps the program. I think it helps keep the integrity of the title. If somebody's just willing to say, no, this particular one, this is bullshit, I'm not doing that, let's come up with something else.
Yeah, I don't know if Daniel Bryan is even ever going to do that. I mean, John Cena doesn't, but he's so popular that it doesn't matter. He's like Teflon.
Yeah. He is at this stage. You can do pretty much whatever you like.
Well, he has got, like you said, the Rumble was a disaster. Even The Rock couldn't prevent poor Roman Reigns from getting booed out of the building. But I think they've they've eased up on Reigns, and it looks like he's being more of himself, at least the last few weeks.
Well, it was funny, I put out a tweet maybe 6 months ago saying Reigns is probably the best heel they have at the moment, and of course I got hammered on Twitter. But it was funny, the parallel of his career and The Rock's career. It was very... Even though Reigns went out with the hernia, which obviously they didn't expect him to do, even a year out when they kind of had this guy penciled as next year's main event. I like that, by the way. I like long-term booking. But he went out. He wasn't even, in my mind, he wasn't even a shoo-in with a whole year under his belt. But then when he went out, like for those 2 or 3 months with the hernia on top of that, I felt there's no way this guy is going to be ready by WrestleMania, and then somebody panicked. It was reported online that Vince was personally writing his promos, which was killing the guy.
Yeah.
And then I was thinking, is Vince like some, is he trying out some new way of building heels, like, which is to take the Bo Dallas character who's super babyface, so he gets heel heat. I wonder, is this some new way of doing it, that he's actually, because it was. At one stage, it was that bad. I was thinking they must be trying to do this. There's no way that all their combined experience can come up with.
Yeah, Superman references and.
Yeah.
Wile E. Coyote or whatever he was saying. I think
Wile E. Coyote. Yeah, that's what it was.
Or Sylvester, suffer and succotash or something he said. And,
nobody said that might not work.
Yeah, even him. Well, he's, I guess, still new, so he's going to say yes to whatever, but. He's also a pretty confident guy, when you hear, and he had to be wondering. So now, the last couple of weeks, he's just been kind of like he was in his Shield. Short but sweet, a little arrogant.
Yeah.
And he's got to know that he's not going to have a chance to get cheered against Bryan tomorrow night. Oh, people are wondering, it's Saturday, and we're going to get to Fastlane, so stop crying if you're listening. But Yeah, he's got to know that he's not going to have a chance. But I think it's in Memphis, which is an old school wrestling town, so you never know, you know.
You never know exactly.
But speaking of Fastlane, let's see. I mean, it's not a bad card on paper.
Hmm.
The only match is that 6-man where it just seems like they didn't have anything left for those 6 guys, and you got what's it, Rollins. That guy's had quite the month, and then Big Show and Kane. I think it's Big Rollins, Show and Kane against what's it, Rowan, Ryback, and Ziggler.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was hoping. Oh, go ahead.
I feel sorry for Seth Rollins, you know. Apart from his personal stuff that went on, which anyone can sympathize and empathize with, his performances this year have just been like phenomenal. And then in the match with Lesnar and Cena, we could all see that, in my mind anyway, a star was born. And then to have the last pay-per-view before WrestleMania, kind of just thrown in a junk match.
Yeah, I don't get that.
I think they could have done way better by him,
Because I was expecting at least Randy Orton back by now. To set up, and I'm sure it's still a possibility. I said on Twitter that I would like to see Orton, Ziggler, and Rollins, and maybe for the Money in the Bank, defend it. But I don't know if they would go with 2-3 ways in one night.
Possibly not. Like, it might be Ziggler now and Rollins, which, we know is going to be one hell of a match, but
it's happened so many times, though.
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't feel like WrestleMania. And why are they doing it? There's no real, Triple H fired me or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I could see Ziggler and Rollins, because they've been going back and forth recently. He got the Authority fired, Ziggler, and Rollins brought him back, and now they're wrestling. And then you could have Orton come and say, hey, this guy stomped my head through whatever he stomped him through, a table or cinder blocks, I think he did to Orton before he left for the movie.
That's it.
And he could say, I want a piece of him too. And then they could put up,
Yep.
Somebody comes out, Triple H, whoever, makes it a 3-way. And then they add some spice to it, because Rollins will go on and on about how he's Mr. Money in the Bank. Yeah, we'll put it up. And there you go. You got some intrigue. It's almost like an extra title match. And then Rollins could win it, and you never know, maybe cash it in, or cash it in the Monday night after if they haven't signed Brock.
Yeah, absolutely.
I see Brock winning no matter what happens. I don't see him losing, but.
Yeah, it all depends, doesn't it, on the contract deal.
Yeah.
I think they're, unfortunately as well with Daniel Bryan, they're after dampening him down so much even over the last 2 weeks that I don't see him going into WrestleMania now on a big wave of, like last year he had that whole momentum behind him.
Right.
He had it behind him, of course, again. Maybe not as big, but that's because he's been away.
Yeah,
and now.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Keep cutting you off.
And now you're wondering, the most over guy is Lesnar. As simple as that. And now are we going to get the whole heel turn with Reigns and Heyman?
Well, they teased. I mean, Brock came out, beat up the Authority, and then they never came back to it. They didn't even acknowledge it. Like maybe they were just doing it to test the reaction to see if you could tell the fans want to cheer him.
Yep.
But he can't be a face and show up every 4 months.
No.
That's the problem.
Unless, of course, he's going to be the face like the Superman who makes the last ditch appearance. Stone Cold with the what were they called, the Alliance, that type of who else can save us type thing.
Well, that's true. I mean, he could play the Superman role unbelievably because he can legitimately kick the crap out of pretty much anybody they have there.
Yep.
But I know they got Bellator and maybe the UFC, a couple other groups, interested in him. But I think I don't know if you can say it. I think it was Dave Meltzer that Brock's concern is concussions, and I don't know if he wants to risk any more in the UFC, where he'd rather just take it easy and just stick it. I mean, you're still susceptible to concussions there, but not too many people could throw him around where he's going to land on his head.
That's true. So, very true.
But we'll see. Also, at the all right, we can skip over to Fastlane. Well, we already did. We have the Sting and Triple H confrontation. It's not actually a match. So they're just going to kind of stare each other down, I suppose, and do what they did at Survivor Series.
I'm not, I'm not jumping up and down with this one. I never thought Sting and Triple H was the right match. I never really thought that Sting and Undertaker would light my fire either because, the match quality mightn't be so great.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is a perfect opportunity to give the Sting rub to, someone like Wyatt.
Yeah.
Somebody who's young, up and coming. I know they're trying to make it like an epic because Vince he loves the the WrestleMania epic matches, these kind of Hogan Rock type, Cena Rock once in a lifetime, even though it was twice. These kind of matchups, these dream matches. But like, did anybody? I don't know. Maybe they did. Like, did anybody really dream of Triple H and Sting?
No, not at all. I mean, Triple H has managed to make it make sense, saying he's the WWE versus Sting as a WCW stalwart.
Yeah.
But nobody ever gave a crap about that. It was always Undertaker, which I didn't care for either.
I think Sting Undertaker just for the sheer performance of it would have been, as particularly at WrestleMania, but maybe WrestleMania 5 years ago. But
exactly. Yeah.
After seeing Undertaker last year at WrestleMania,
Yeah, and they're talking about
obviously
they want to drag him out for Wyatt this year. It sounds like.
That's it. Yeah. Which again, like maybe this is Undertaker saying this, and I want to give something back or whatever it is, whatever the reason, but I genuinely hope that I'm sure he does way better than I'll ever will, but I genuinely hope that he just looks after himself, because there was no pleasure in watching last year's WrestleMania match.
Nah, it was hard to watch. He wasn't in his usual shape.
No.
And that was with all that time off. I mean, you hadn't seen him since the Shield put him through the table, which I think injured him.
Yes.
Ironically enough, and then put him out all the way until he faced Brock. And then another, I mean, just from storyline aspect for the casual fan, if you're the Undertaker and you're at WrestleMania, why don't you want to kick Brock Lesnar's ass? He's on the same show as you.
Absolutely, and does this mean the old gunslinger knows that he can't beat Brock? And if that's the case, then he should say that and even give Brock more to rub and then move on. It feels all unresolved.
Yeah, it definitely is, especially when they keep harping on it. I'm the 1-21-1 and blah blah blah. Unless Taker, but that cheapens anything that Wyatt. Well, no, he's gonna wrestle Wyatt. That would cheapen the main event if the Taker distracted and led to a loss, because then you have to have a rematch that he may not want to have. With Brock Lesnar.
Then it looks like Undertaker is the one with the sour grapes, and
yeah,
so there's no neat way out of this.
No, I mean outside of just having it not happen, but it's too late. I mean, people are probably buying tickets based on that, just for the entrances alone between him and Bray. Then they actually got to get in the ring, and Bray is not a light feather, guy in the ring. No. He kicks the shit out of you.
Yeah, yeah.
Especially that back elbow that he throws. I mean, you probably won't see that move in their match. But there's no easy way. I mean, I'm not a wrestler, but that just looks brutal when he does it.
Yep.
But speaking of brutal, well, it probably won't be. We'll have the Divas match. I mean, I like Paige. I don't mind Nikki Bella. She's actually a little better in the ring, but I don't know if too many people will pay attention to that match. And
no, I just think it's been used as an advertisement for the Total Divas show on another channel, which is fine. It's fine, but when you see what the women are doing down on NXT, and then you see what the women are doing supposedly on the main roster, on the big leagues. Sasha Banks is ready to go. For me, she's probably, first in line, then Charlotte. I think Becky Lynch is ready to go. You put even 3 of those up there. Bayley, 4 of those women up there. Let them rock.
Or even, take the leash off of Emma, too. I mean, they don't let her do
That's
anything.
for sure, yeah.
But like you said, I think they're afraid to go to the main roster because their matches will be cut down to 2 minutes. They already did it to Charlotte, I think, twice or once.
Yeah.
She lost.
Once she came in, she came in. She lost even, didn't she? She came in. It was Natty Neidhart, 2 minutes. Mm-hmm. Lost the match, and that was it.
And that was 2 weeks after they had their match on Takeover, I think.
Yes, which was for me, it was one of the matches of the year.
Yeah, I think it even got votes for match of the year.
Yeah, I think rightly so. I was blown away by that match. It was superb.
And they said, I think it was, because I don't like to quote people and not credit them, Brian Alvarez was saying that you can't unsee that. Once you see Charlotte lose in 2 minutes, you can't gloss it over later on. So,
well, this is it, and we all know how good Paige is as well. And, she's up there and she's scratching around, and you're thinking to yourself, what's her feud? Is it the Bella Twins at the moment who robbed her clothes?
Yeah. I mean, they kind of just threw her in there cold, won the belt the first night without telling you anything about her, at least on Raw. I think they assume that people watch NXT and Raw, and I don't think that's the case.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening with a Bo Dallas and an Adam Rose and the Ascension. It's like people just see these people at the arena see these guys and they have no idea who they are, and that's just their bad promotion on their part.
It really is, and unfortunately, I wrote a column for this for the Wrestling Observer. Like, but if you're a female competitor in WWE, you know, you're either crazy, sex-starved, or a lesbian.
That's true.
That's it. Pick it. That's you'll be one of these three characters, and that's it.
Right.
Like even like you know the really good wrestlers, even back in the day, like Lita and Sable Sable, haha, Trish. There's a slip of the tongue. Trish. You know how many times like even Trish, who was considered one of the greatest of all time. I mean, how many times did she go from backstabber to crazy, to you know sex siren to you know then she had the whole weird Mickey James lesbian angle, then she was back to the sex siren, then she was you know. And it's just there was no real development in the, and we of course as wrestling fans saw that the real development was in her skill, how good she was getting, and we were cheering her on and we were rooting her on, but her character was essentially the TNA
TNA,
manager.
yeah. Well, especially Lita, which are live sex celebrations with Edge.
That's
and,
right. Yeah.
You know, being the chick in between Matt Hardy and Edge and all that. And Kane's wife and all this ridiculousness. But
madness.
Yeah, and then
so I don't envy, unless now there's going to be a real sea change and Triple H is because obviously he's given the nod for them to rock down in NXT, unless he's going to kind of put down his foot or you know flex his muscle on the Raw brand. I just feel sorry for these ladies, you know.
Yeah, I think that's the impetus behind the NXT doing some traveling and making their own brand, because the women are not going to get that shot. I don't believe on Raw, you know, especially if they're not total divas. So Banks could probably do both, you know, because she's got the personality for it.
She definitely has, but it's such a shame, you know, because wasn't the last stats that 32% of WWE's audience are women, and I have a 13-year-old daughter, and then I have my wife as well. And when we sit down, like I explained to my daughter, you know, that you know this is not the way women are, or women should be portrayed, even, you know. That you know the highest that you can aspire to be like is the best backstabber or have the best boyfriend. Right. You know, it's so patronizing. Like even and of course, like I sat through the Attitude Era. But now that I have a daughter and I have a wife and I'm trying to watch this thing, I'm thinking to myself, nah, that's actually so now me and my daughter watch NXT and I say, no, that's what you can be. You can be an athlete, you can be a competitor, you can be an ass kicker, or you can be crazy. You know, a girly girl. It's up to you.
Oh yeah, they got what's it, Brittany, I think her name is, with a little sprinkled dust and all that.
That's right.
See, my wife actually enjoys. She'll tolerate Raw, but she watches Lucha Underground. She loves that show.
Nice. Yeah, that's.
Because the women in that show kick the crap out of the men. Even the little midget guy does, Masquerita Sagrada. So she loves that. She just can't stand the commentary by Matt Stryker. She calls him Matt Strikeout. I've got to get that trending somehow.
That's very good.
Yeah. Very good. She just pulled that out of nowhere. She's like, I don't like Matt Strikeout. And I thought she said it as a, you know, just not knowing what his name was, but she knew.
Yeah.
But let's see. Well, we got Dean Ambrose and Barrett, which should be a good match. They kind of threw that one together. And then they have the Dust Brothers, which is maybe a year or two too late. Goldust and Stardust.
Yes, a year too late, and also maybe three weeks too early.
Yeah, 4 weeks. I think they're going at it tomorrow. Hopefully it's a no finish, and they get another go at it. Yeah. And then you got Bryan and Reigns. Oh, I forgot about Cena and Rusev. I hope they don't ruin Rusev with a loss. I don't see it happening, but
I don't either. But then what? So what do you do? Do you go Cena Rusev again for WrestleMania? And if so, some sort of gimmick match or?
I think it's probably be a finish where Rusev doesn't. He'll probably get DQ'd. I think. Yeah. Count it out, and then won't let go of the accolade, and Cena won't be able to break it, and maybe that'll be the story they tell. You know, like he has him, he tries to power out, and he can't, and they'll just leave Cena laying, but without pinning him, and maybe that'll set up. I mean, I'm too simple when it comes to booking ideas. That's why I would never ever make it in the WWE probably. You know, like that. You know, I'm too sane for their.
You'd never survive.
Yeah, that stuff doesn't work. What do you mean? You know, instead, they'll have Cena pin him in 5 minutes, and they'll have a rematch. Let's see. What else? We have the Usos and Kid and Cesaro, who thankfully are getting some pay-per-view time, because they're a pretty good tag team.
Tyson Kidd for me, like, is we all know how great Cesaro is, but Tyson Kidd for me, I'm so happy to see him, you know, just get confident around the other aspects of it, the outside stuff, the the personality stuff, the microphone stuff. Like even putting kittens on his boots. Like what type of guy does that? And that's the type of guy that I want to watch.
Yeah, I think they said he's doing that for Teddy Hart, who is a crazy cat person.
Right.
He's like he's
But and if you watch Total Divas, which I have to say I was a huge fan of the first 2 seasons, that he is quite good off the cuff.
Yeah, he is. I mean, I don't know how much instruction they get during those scenes, but he doesn't make you feel like you're watching a reality show.
No, and he's not robotic, and he's not any of that. So I'm delighted that the little trip down to NXT, which is what I think NXT should be used for, in the same way the old territories were used that way. You go somewhere you don't get over, or you go somewhere and you get stale, and then you go away and you come back again.
Yeah.
Rather than getting fired.
It's true. I think they have Rhino down there. I don't know if it aired. It was on TV. And Brian Kendrick is down there also.
That's right.
And he has a school, so I guess they have him down there. Maybe he's trying to get a job, training down at the center.
Maybe, and I think, again, instead of burning through the kind of Balor, Owens, Zayn, Neville, and a Tammy, but he's, for me, a little bit more on the outside just because of maybe his confidence or whatever. But instead of burning through those 4 guys wrestling each other continuously, I think it's so smart to bring in the likes of Rhino and Kendrick that'll keep, those 4 guys apart, that they're not going to be wrestling each other on every, I suppose, what do you call it, weekly show or whatever it is.
Because you need that buffer between, those are your 4 special talents, I guess you'd say, and then you need those, like the CJ Parkers of the world and stuff like that to help build them up, or just to, like you said, keep them apart, but not be a scrub. So you don't view Rhino as a bum. You don't view Kendrick, as an easy win or something like that. I just feel like.
And this is.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. This is why it makes total sense to me because, even I suppose the viewer looks in and they say, look, these 4 guys are clearly the 4 guys. These are, even though Tyler Breeze is so good and like you said, CJ Parker, I actually really I like his work, but those 4 guys are so clearly at the top that if they're not wrestling each other or for the belt or for the number 1 contendership, then they're obviously sliding back down the scale again. Like if Adrian Neville walks in tomorrow and like he has to, wrestle one of the Lucha Dragons in a feud for 3 weeks, then we know obviously look, there's a small demotion here while something else is cooking. But instead of doing that, I think they're doing the really smart thing, which is to bring in veterans. And Rhino, of course, would be able to teach you something completely different than Brian Kendrick would. So I think the mix as well of the veterans down there is great, and I think it's doing a really smart thing, which is keeping those 4 people fresh in their matches, crisscrossing each other.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and even some current roster guys, I could bring them down, like you said, and not repackage them, but just get them off of TV for a while.
Yeah.
And still make use of them.
Absolutely.
Because, I mean, it worked for Kid, like you said. He hasn't really been on NXT now. Now that he's back up on Raw, I don't think he's been on NXT.
Not for a while.
No, but you got like guys like Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston, I think, would benefit from going one-on-one with like a Baylor or a Neville, just to show the fans what he can do.
Yeah.
Because now he's, like I don't know what the heck those guys are, the New Day.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't even know what it is as a gimmick.
Yeah, it's like a 70s, almost borderline racism gimmick if you're Vince McMahon.
Yep. Of course.
Give him a choir. I could hear him in the boardroom. All right. Well, I won't keep you too much longer. I know you got stuff to do. Just what's your thoughts on? I guess we have our mandatory CM Punk reference. I know he's getting sued now, but what do you think How do you think he'll do in the UFC?
I think it all depends who they put him against. I think you can tell who, is a natural puncher, even in a work sport like wrestling, by watching them in the ring, that kind of snap out, whether thrown, even the work punches are coming from the shoulder or whatever. I never ever got the sense that CM Punk was a great striker. Now, I know Duke Rufus is saying that he's working on that with him and his ground game was stronger, but he will be a great striker by the time he gets there. In a way, it all depends for me how, Dana White is looking at the whole, UFC is legit, wrestling isn't. Like, is he going to make an example out of someone like Punk? Who, not overtly now, but I think Punk would be of course he will be a great draw in his first match or two. If he gets destroyed in his first match, of course his second match is going to be a lot less. And didn't Punk say he signed a 3-match deal? So I think for CM Punk's on good that I hope he has a really good first outing, because if he gets destroyed in his first outing and he goes in for another match, I think they're going to put him in there against an animal.
Yeah, I mean, Dana White claims his first fight will be someone with the same amount of experience as Punk. And I'm like, if that's the case, then I'll fight him, because Punk has no experience at all. I think even Ed O'Neill from Modern Family challenged him to a fight. But he's actually a black belt, Ed O'Neill. But,
I'm just going to say I wouldn't like to roll around with Ed O'Neill. I think
neither, yeah.
Oh, no, thank you.
He's a dangerous man. But like you said, I always try to throw the character of Punk supposedly having a Muay Thai background, but if you see the kicks he throws, there is nothing Muay Thai about that at all. Daniel Bryan, if anything, who doesn't have, he trained a little bit in Vegas, or I think he lived out in Vegas for a while, and we trained with Randy Couture. It's a gym. So he has, MMA in him, so his kicks look a little more convincing. He winds him up. Because, I'm a big MMA fan overall, but, Punk, it's good, but like you said, it depends on how they promote him. I'm in your wagon where I hope he at least wins the first fight. And if he does, he'll beat a nobody, and they'll say, oh, well, he beat a nobody. But there are no nobodies in the UFC. I might not have heard of him, but the worst guy in the UFC has been doing martial arts for years.
That's it.
And that guy is going to want to make his name. He's not a dummy by knocking out this, fake quote-unquote wrestling guy. So Punk, that's the worst midlife crisis to have. Is decide to go fight in the UFC.
It really is. Huh? Exactly, yeah. Grow some chest hair and get a medallion.
Yeah, I know. A big C on his chest. He married a girl, almost 10, 15 years younger than him, and decides to go and fight the most dangerous living people in the world inside a cage. So.
And not known as a skillful or tough guy himself, I
don't. Yeah, you're a fan and everything, but that's like me saying, I like to watch NASCAR, and then I'm going to go and drive in the Indy 500 on my first try. Go somewhere else. But if you're also him, if I'm going to try this, I might as well make the most money I possibly can. I guess
and that's it, Yeah, and that's kind of the other side of Punk as well, where he's shrewd enough when it comes to that sort of stuff too, and I know that he's not doing this on his own. He would have the likes of Paul Heyman in his ear, I'm sure, who's kind of navigated the UFC waters, knows the inside, the outsides. But does UFC want any guy? So take the wrestling out of it for a second. The wrestler CM Punk. Do they want Phil Brooks, who's never had a professional fight, come in, learn how to do their most intricate of things, which is to put all the martial arts together in 12 months and go out there and beat one of their guys?
Exactly. How do you live that down?
Because they're selling to us, and of course we all believe it, that to succeed in the UFC, is a lifetime worth of dedication, mixing the martial arts, getting the cocktail right between, wrestlers learning how to box, college wrestlers or national wrestlers learn how to box, or boxers coming in and learning the ground game, and kind of getting that concoction right. How do you bring in a CM Punk who, didn't really have, by all accounts, didn't have any game, doesn't have a ground game, a Muay Thai game, doesn't have striking. He done a little bit with the Gracies, that's fine, but, even there, I don't see anybody coming out and saying, no, this guy's a legit black belt, we just haven't got around to it yet. Nobody's saying that about CM Punk.
No.
So he's going to come in and in 12 months get in their octagon and beat one of their guys. I don't know.
Yeah, they're going to have to really throw some ham and egger, as Bobby Heenan would say, in there with him. And even then, they'll get grief for that. But that will set up a legit fight that he will probably get slaughtered in. But hey,
yes,
he's I don't even know what weight class he's thinking of fighting in.
I don't know either. Was he talking about 145 and then?
Well, that would be crazy because he's walks around, I'd say, close to 200 pounds maybe.
Yeah.
He's not a short guy. He's like 6'1", 6'2", maybe.
Well, that's it. You see, we were so used to seeing him in the kind of the land of the giants that he looks like a small guy because we see him up against 6'9" guys every week, or we did on the wrestling show. But as a normal human being, he's a big guy.
Yeah, he is. Height-wise, at the very least, I think he's wrestles at 220, 225. So if you want to cut, well, then again, the kid Donald Cerrone is my height. I'm just at 6 feet, and he fights. Well, he weighs in at 155, which is insane. And then he must fight at 175 or 180. Oh, that was another question. If Punk can even survive a camp to have a fight in.
Well, that's it. Is he not going to get a mysterious injury when he's
Well, I mean,
falling around somebody
fighting what injuries he already has. 12 concussions he claims, and knee injuries, and had his knee scoped. I don't know. Well, hey, more power to him. What are you gonna do?
We shall see.
But on that note, more power to you, Mr. Punk. Hopefully you don't get killed. And speaking of people getting killed, everybody should check out Mr. O'Brien's awesome crime/wrestling novel series, where there are lots of people getting killed. But I'm not going to spoil it for anyone. It's hard to talk about it because I don't want it to.
I know it's a strange one because the stories, all three novels, are laced with kind of spoiler alerts everywhere. It's all intertwined, all interlinked.
Yeah, and that's the appeal of it. So I mean, he's listening now. If you want to try a book or you're not a reader, it's a good book to start with because you're gonna all three of them. But you have to pay attention to everything you're reading because it's gonna come back and loop back around. You can't zone out because I've known to read books and somehow turn a page and not know anything I read the previous page.
Yeah,
it's like your brain goes on autopilot. And,
Yep.
You can't do that in this book because you'll regret it later on.
That's it. And I hope the payoff is good enough that these novels, I hope, reward people who stick in that kind of active zone rather than they just spacing out and turning pages type thing. I hope the action on the page is good enough to keep you engaged.
Well, the pace that's what I like. It's not like a Game of Thrones or something like that where it's like a struggle. You want to skip to the good stuff. You don't have to skip to the good stuff in these books because it's fast-paced, like a TV show almost, like you're reading a television show.
That's perfect. That's the perfect description. That's what I set out to do. I decided I wanted to write a TV show in book form, and I wanted to keep it, finishing on the cliffhanger. I wanted, to have that kind of rhythm to it that, every ad break, if you like, has a kind of a dun-dun-dun moment. So, like you say, every 10 or 20 pages, there should be a moment where oh, what's happening here?
Volume 2 ends with a mind-killing cliffhanger that I had to wait, a few months to get over. So for people that are reading it now, you're fortunate that you can go ahead and jump right into the third one.
All in.
Yeah, because good lord! But I can't even mention. I don't want to ruin it for anyone.
But, you can't even mention that.
Yeah, I know, but it's good. That's all I can say. So
I appreciate that.
Where can outside of Twitter, which is tweet Paul O'Brien, where can everybody else find you?
Let's see. The best place is probably my website, which is paulobrien.info. I have a good presence there. That's updated daily, and then Twitter, I'm on that quite a lot as well. So like you mentioned, it's tweet Paul O'Brien. So they're probably the two best places to catch me.
Oh, okay, great. Well, thanks again. Hopefully we won't wait so many months before we get together. Maybe we'll talk about a TV show or something like that in the future.
Absolutely.
I'm hoping we do.
Yes, when there's something to announce, I'll definitely give you a shout and we can do this again because I really enjoy it.
So do I. I look forward. I haven't talked wrestling much on the show because we've been doing reality shows and stuff and getting them, but
right.
I always want to get back and try to talk the wrestling. Jessie tries to keep up with me, but that's not her. She watches it, but she does it for me.
Yeah.
That's why
I know what you mean.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks again.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
And we'll get everybody
Bye-bye.
next week on the podcast about nothing.